Are you hearing me out there? Okay. Call to order the Plan Commission, May 28th, 2019. Notice has been duly posted. Roll call.
Mayor Joel Chilson,
Here.
Tom Smith,
Here.
Jared Holter. Here. Jan Brock. Present. Paul Gleason. Knut Temte is excused. Craig Breitspecker.
Present.
Stephen Knott.
Present.
Thank you. Approval of the minutes of the previous meeting.
Motion to approve the minutes from the previous meeting.
Motion made by Commissioner Breitspecker, seconded by Commissioner Knott to approve the meetings of the minutes of the previous meeting. Discussion? Excuse me. Discussion? Hearing none. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Abstentions? So moved. Public input. Anyone wishing to give public input, please step to the microphone, state your name and address, and you have 3 minutes.
My name is Marie Condon. I'm a homeowner at 2216 German Court, and I had some pictures that I wanted to share with everybody. I put one on each table, so I hope everyone has one to
Yeah, that's good enough, yeah, okay. I can, don't worry about it.
CONGDON.
Sir, can you not hear? You can't hear back there, okay. Could you kind of nuzzle up to that microphone a little bit?
Okay. So the pictures. The first picture is what I currently see when I look out my window or I step on the deck. It gives me a sense of seclusion and privacy, even though we're right by the interstate. The next 3 pictures are what the property owners in Winona get to look at every day since Dahl has moved in. As you can see, the lights are an intrusive eyesore, and the fence does absolutely nothing to hide them. If Dahl removes all these trees, as they have told us they're going to do, I'm afraid this is what we're going to be seeing. Not to mention increased noise from the interstate and their body shop. I'm asking you not to allow this to happen to us. If they really need to be there, then they should stay on the other side of the trees and put a berm and a fence up there. Keep the access to the cell phone tower as is and build beyond the trees. When we found this house, we said this was our last move. From here to the graveyard, we said. And I don't think that's going to be a reality for us anymore. If I won't be happy living there anymore, and I'm not going to be, what prospective buyer is going to come to our house and say, awesome, there's a car dealer in the backyard? This house is everything we've worked for 30 years, and I just feel our investment slipping away.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Bill Rockwood. Can you all hear me back there? Okay. Well, I won't take much of your time. My wife Judy's in my garden center property is comprised of 3 lots. There's 5 acres total, and tonight we're talking about 2 lots which comprise 3 acres. The issue tonight is the 2 lots, which are adjacent to Interstate 90, upon which Dahl's new car dealership is proposed. We think, with all due respect, we think this is a beneficial option for the neighboring community. I think it's about the least disruptive option that we can think of. Not much activity on the side facing the homes over there. There's the Interstate 90 is right there, generating some noise, and it's hard to imagine this would be a whole lot more. The business shuts down nightly. It shuts down Sundays. It shuts down holidays. And so from an impact standpoint, it's pretty small. You can see from the drawings that it's largely parking lot was the area we're talking about here. Judy and I also like the idea of assisting a company that's been so beneficial for this community. They are very helpful with a number of the organizations that we hold dearest, like the YMCA, the Boy Scouts, and many others. Dahl is a high-quality company, providing super clean facilities and long-term stability for the long term. So, with that, I do need to raise another point, and that is that if this sale doesn't go through, what's going to happen, I believe, is the Dahl will proceed with the dealership and the adjacent property. And if that happens, what it's going to mean is that those two lots are landlocked. And the de facto result of that is going to be that we'll probably have to find a buyer that's going to want all 5 acres. We can wait for that. Eventually, somebody will want to put something there. But in addition to the impact of whatever that materializes, whether it's a hotel, apartment buildings, water park, whatever develops over the years, the traffic that will otherwise go through to the lower lots would all be going by Bremer Bank with the current proposal. Whatever happens with those 5 acres, if this is not approved, is going to all go through our driveway up at the north side of Theater Road, and that'll probably have significant effect on the neighborhood relative to that. So I guess it's hard to imagine a project of such a large 5-acre scale having less impact than
3
what's
minutes.
being proposed here. Anyway, so for several reasons, we hope you'll approve. We hope you'll do so in such a way as to make it not too burdenly, but too costly to make it not financially feasible. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, members of the Planning Commission and area citizens. My name is Tyler Dahl, representing the development for Dahl Honda. Thank you for consideration and recommending approval for rezoning and annexation of these properties. Approval of these applications will allow us to develop this difficult site for use that is well suited to its current condition. With limited access, like Mr. Rockwood just explained, for many major roads, this property would become isolated from future development if we are not successful in annexation and rezoning. In addition, the 80-foot wide easement from XL Energy due to the overhead power lines severely limit what can be developed on this property. So basically, we're providing the ideal use of this land as we develop the overall site for our dealership operations. So during the Planning Commission subcommittee last week, we were able to listen to the area residents and their concerns with this development, and we actually went over to the site with the majority of them, discussed firsthand what their concerns are. So that was a good experience for us. So a few things, as you can see from our plan, there's a lot of screening that we're going to be not only required from the planning department that we're happy to do, and in addition from that, we're going to provide a setback up to 60 feet from the residential properties when current code actually only requires us from 5 to 10 feet. So substantial change there. This is going to allow, like Marie said, much of the existing vegetation in that 60-foot to actually remain there, including some mature trees, and then we'll infill that with additional landscaping, layered landscaping, shrubbery, things that will provide some natural landscape in a residential setting. And a big thing on this as well is that the cell phone tower access will be eliminated from the city. And so as per item 4 in the packet, City of Onalaska is required that we vacate and relinquish the access easement to Heritage Lane and German Court. Once the demolition of the existing structures is complete, this will eliminate any and all traffic through the parcel owned by the Hendricks. Once the access is vacated, we plan to remove any resemblance of the access road and work with the property owner to reseed the area back to a natural vegetative state. And then access to the cell tower will be provided through our property from the east and off of Theater Road. And of course, another major issue that was brought up is lighting. And so I provided some information on the lighting and additional packets. You can see that at your discretion. So we're implementing LED outdoor light fixtures that have been certified by the International Dark Sky Association as being dark sky friendly, meaning that they minimize glare while reducing light, trespass, and sky glow. So these lights will illuminate the inventory without polluting the neighborhood community with nuisance light. To accomplish this, the light fixtures utilize a shielding system that direct 100% of the light down to the ground versus seeing glare from a distance. And to assist further in minimizing the effects of our lighting, the exterior of the lights are dimmed to 10% of their power. So reduce the power by 90%.
3 minutes.
At evening to help, reduce that nighttime as well. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to give public input?
Gonna find my paperwork here first. Should have had it organized, huh?
That's okay, we won't start the clock ticking until you start talking. How about that?
Okay. All right, my name is Clifford Hendrick. I'm the owner of the property, which is on the west boundary of the property that Rockwood's owned with the farmhouse on it. First off, if you're taking X's and zeros, you can put me in the middle because I know that business owners have to make the best use of their property. And a number of years ago, they wanted to put a theater and a bunch of other stuff back in there, but, they have to do something. They can't leave the land vacant, so. And I personally believe, that the Dolls are gonna try and do a good job. But anyway, from there, you may find that I swing the other way. I've owned or built the existing property at 2232 German Court in October of 2005. I was living in that house for several years when the city of Onalaska allowed or required Tom Krajewski, I don't know if any of you people were here then, to fill the lot that the Dolls are going to buy. And when they filled it, that stopped the flow of the water from the village down through my property and out to I-90, where there's a drain that goes down to Sandalwood Park. Therefore, I have a number of concerns. Altering how the surface water drains, should the land at the 9-930, which is N4342 German Court, change the landscaping, pave the area, or change the grade, and it's currently about between 8 and 12 inches below my lot, so it's absorbing some of the water that's coming down the hill, and puddling up in that area, so if they change the landscaping, it's gonna push that water over into my yard. My second concern is, if the zoning for N4342, where the farmhouse is changed to M1, it's currently a county zoning, not an Onalaska zoning. They're gonna annex that property into Onalaska and change it to M1. If the Dolls do not buy that property, I would adamantly not want that property to be M1 directly behind me, because cars is one thing, foundry is another thing, so, okay. Okay, and Tyler mentioned this, if the easement on 2232 German Court is vacated, is not vacated, then I want the wording changed that there won't be any access, vehicular access back and forth, but if it's vacated, there's no issue, And
minutes.
4, all I can say to this council, or this meeting, the Plan Commission here is, if my lot floods as a result of this decision, it's on you guys and it's on the Dolls, because it is against the law to do something to your property that would cause encroachment of water on your neighbors. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. So my name is Jansen Dahl. I'm of 208 17th Place South in La Crosse, and just want to thank you for this opportunity. We as a family, as an organization, as a fifth generation business owners in the community are very excited for this opportunity to add this development in Onalaska. We have the Ford store just down the road on Theater Road, and we're very excited to bring another dealership to Onalaska. We have Maury's potentially building right across the street, and we feel that it's going to bring a lot of good jobs and good opportunity to this area. We have, plans to build a 22,000 square foot facility. It's going to be one rooftop with auto sales, service, and parts all within one. And we have a very tight timeline in which to get this done. We plan to break ground and dig dirt August 1st and be in the building April 1st. So we have a tight timeline that we're working with. So we have a lot of moving parts in this. And some of the things that we're working towards, mitigating that we've done in our other properties is water retention. So there's a difference between detention and water retention. So we plan to, do everything we can to detain the water and then distribute that to the stream and sewer so that it's, contained on our property. We're required by the DNR to mitigate all the water that's on our property and handle it. It can't go to neighboring properties. It's against the law. So we are taking care of that very much. There's some existing tenants, I think, that are renting there now that maybe had 20 to 30 cars there at one time, kind of a boneyard. We plan on, terminating the lease there and demolishing those buildings and turning that back into some natural vegetation there, turning it into more of a green space where those buildings are now. We talked about development, M1 zoning. When we buy the property, it's going to be a parking lot. We're going to have about nearly a 600-foot buffer between the residential property lines and the actual dealership. And then within that will be a parking lot that stores our new car inventory, used car inventory, and employee parking. So the traffic in that section that we're talking about for annexation and rezoning is going to have a much reduced amount of activity than the regular dealership property and the rest of Theater Road and certainly I-90 there. And we'll do everything we can to keep noise down within the building. Doors are closed. We have cylinder block walls. It's a very noise-friendly area. So I guess I'm just asking for you guys to approve, this request and move it forward. Like I said, we have a tight timeline to get this done, August 1st, and my job's on the line if I don't get it done. So, but I appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
You.
Good evening. My name is Scott Butler. I'm an attorney at Fitzpatrick Skemp & Associates, and I also live at 2220 German Court in Onalaska. I am the house that is directly west to the parcel of 18-3570-70. So first, I don't oppose the annexation of parcel 9-93-00. However, if it is annexed by the city of Onalaska, I would request that the zoning stay consistent with the parcel directly south, which is B1. It's very common for zoning to be in gradients. So you have residential, you have neighborhood business, you have light industry, heavy industry, et cetera, et cetera. If that is annexed, it should remain as a neighborhood business zoning, consistent with the one directly to the south. Similar to that, I object to the rezoning of the parcel to the south as to light industry. The reason being is I believe it'll cause a nuisance on several factors. Now, I appreciate what Dahl has said today about how they plan on minimizing those nuisances, but those aren't on the agenda, is my understanding. The question is whether or not they're going to be rezoned. So if they are rezoned, and for whatever reason they decide not to do what they said tonight, we as neighbors have no recourse because they're operating within the zoning. So I'm not looking at what they're proposing. I'm only looking at what the zoning would allow them to do, and quite frankly, if it's rezoned, they'd be allowed to do. So first, it's going to be a visual nuisance. Beyond just the lights are going to be on 24/7. They could do something more expensive and make them dim at night. They don't have to do that. Again, if it's rezoned, those can be on 24/7 and cause a great amount of light pollution. Second, it's going to be an audio nuisance. Again, with the tools and the cars, it could be very loud. This is in addition to the highway. I know they're saying they're going to keep the doors closed, but if they open them up, we're going to have no recourse. Third, it's going to be a water nuisance. Whenever you pave over a large amount of permeable soil, that's going to change the way the water is flowing. They may have a retention pond, but that's still not going to keep all the water on their property and go off onto our property. And again, they're talking about what they're planning on doing, but if they don't honor their word, we have no recourse because the land's already been rezoned, which is why it's important the land, if it is annexed, it is on that B1 zoning. And finally, I believe it's going to be a health nuisance, because if they do put in these rain gardens, those are going to be a place where mosquitoes and other vectors can grow and breed, which is going to cause other health issues in a residential area. So for those reasons, I would urge this council not to rezone parcel 18-3570-70, and if they do annex parcel 9-93-0, it's inconsistent with the parcel directly to the south. Thank you for your time.
Thanks.
My name is Peter Condon. I'm also at 2216 German Court, directly behind the property in question. I had several questions and concerns tonight. One, I read something, I think it was point number 3, about a two-way access with Goodwill. And I'm curious, is that going to be to the west of the Goodwill building? In other words, behind the Goodwill building? Is there going to be traffic going back and forth there where the Rockwood Gardens used to be? Second, we did hand out some pictures. Dahl encouraged us to take a look at what they did up in Winona, and quite frankly, from the pictures, we weren't impressed. These drawings are much better than what was even put into the agenda for this evening. But again, you know, what's it finally going to look like? What kind of shrubs are these? How tall are they going to be initially? What do they grow into be? You know, I've heard talks of berms, fences, plants, vegetation. I still don't have a clear picture of what that's all going to look like for me. No idea what my view is going to be like, or you know, what privacy I'm going to be entitled to going forward. So I need more details in that respect. Also concerned about the lights. I know they've got lights that dim during the evening, and these all sound great, but at the end of the day, things still reflect off of glass and vehicles, and it's still what's it going to be like at the end of the day. I've got several rooms facing that direction, so that's a concern, you know, and there's just no doubt about it. Once, even if they leave as many mature trees as they can, when they take the rest down, it's going to increase the noise from I-90. When I-90 was resurfaced and they put in new guardrail, they had to take some trees down that were right along I-90 between the properties, and the noise level has increased significantly just with that, with those few trees being removed. I can't imagine how much louder it's going to be going forward. The water runoff has been mentioned several times. You know, our yard gets plenty of water as it is. It's, you know, I usually have to wait a couple days after a heavy rain to go mow. I don't need additional water running onto my property. And I noticed the rain garden in one picture, it was on the north end, now it's on the south end of the whole structure. And then I'm kind of looking to, you know, the other option that hasn't come up is, what about signage for Dahl? Are they going to have a big lit up sign right along I-90? Is it going to be out by Theater Road? I haven't heard anything about that, you know, so I mean, I know Target and Kohl's and Best Buy, they all have signs along I-90 on the commercial property. Am I going to be facing the same thing, you know, 500 feet from my house? And what about property value? I mean, what's my recourse if my property value goes down? You know, should I have it assessed right now? Should I have a couple realtors come out, give me an idea of what the land is worth as is? You know, I'm kind of looking to you guys for, you know, proper recourse assistance. If any of these things that are said we're going to be kept to a minimum aren't kept to a minimum, then, you know, where do we turn to? How do we address that? So thank you for your time.
Whoever's quicker gets a.
Me. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to again address our commercial area and my residential area. My husband and I bought our first lot in an undesirable area, which we felt
Deb, would you
29
enter-
years ago.
I know you and I know
I
each
am
other
so
real
sorry.
well, but the
Deb
rest of it-
Carlson, I live at 2226 Germain Court in Onalaska, adjacent to the property. So I guess, very briefly, we built 5 houses in an area that had not been developed and was not interested in being developed. It's a nice, quiet residential neighborhood. Since then, 5 more houses have been built. This is the 3rd time we've had to come to the City Plan Commission because of attempts to zone commercial property right in our backyards. And I won't go through all 3 of them, and some of you know what they were. And it's getting old that the city of Onalaska doesn't seem to be protecting their residential areas. I understand business, and after talking to the Dolls this evening a little bit, I feel better about it. But we have some major concerns. One of them is the water flow that comes down the hill into our backyard. The road that was put together for the flagpole or the tower at the end of our, behind our houses, has kind of caused a damming effect. And when the developer south of what we built blocked in and filled in his whole backyards, it stopped the natural water flow. So my shed had an inch of water in it this spring. And it did 4 years ago when we had 7 inches of water. So there are some concerns that need to be fixed with that as well. The issues, of course, would be the view, the water, what's going to happen, and how is that land behind me going to be developed, the noise. And I just hope that the City Plan Commission and Council takes a really good look and sets high standards for the development that would possibly take place, and that as extra consideration be taken for these measures. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is George Lukey. I live at 227 Heritage Lane, which is the property immediately north of the proposed Dahl business area. We would form the berm on the far north side all along our property. Just a couple things. I have been to the meetings that Deb has been to as far as the rezonings go over the past years. And I concur with Deb and with Cliff that if for some reason this doesn't go through as an M1, that we go back to a B1, or if for some reason the M1 and Dahl, something happens with that it revert back to the B1. That's my only concern. I am quite pleased with the road that's between Cliff and I being cut off, because quite frankly, we've put up with a mess there for 20 years. We've had a used car lot there. We've had our road not maintained but driven on by the residents that lived there. So I'm pleased that that road will eventually be blocked off and grassed and whatever, so that that can't be used anymore. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else that, okay.
My name is James Makepeace. I'm a design engineer with this project. I'm also a business owner, Makepeace Engineering in Onalaska. And as you've seen here, there's some challenges to this site. And Dahl's proposal of developing a Honda dealership there is a very high use and a very valuable improvement, about as high and valuable as I can imagine, with such restrictions, with huge power poles and power lines running right down the middle of this. I think the result of this project is going to be an attractive building with a lot of curb appeal, dozens of new jobs, a significant increase in tax revenue for the city. I think it will likely spur further development in the immediate area. It'll be a benefit for Onalaska's residents and business owners such as myself. Thanks.
Anyone else wishing to give public input? Second call. Anyone wishing to give public input? Third and final call. Anyone wishing to give public input? That portion is now closed. Consideration and possible action on the following items. A public hearing. Consideration of a rezoning request filed by Jansen Dahl of Chase 210 LLC, 3819 Creekside Lane, Holman, Wisconsin, 54636, on behalf of Judith Rockwood, N9495 Radcliffe Road, Mindoro, Wisconsin, 54644, to rezone a parcel from neighborhood business B1 to light industrial M1 district to facilitate the construction of an auto dealership and service center at 384 Theater Road, Onalaska, Wisconsin, 54650, tax parcel number 18-3570-70. Now, anyone wishing to speak in favor? Oh, Katie, why don't you go first?
Sure. Thank you. Before you this evening is a public hearing consideration of a rezoning request at 384 Theater Road. The existing zoning, as stated, is neighborhood business B1 district. Properties within 250 feet of the one in question include a variety of single-family dwellings, condominium development, a telecommunications structure, retail businesses, and vacant land. The comprehensive plan identifies this area as part of the commercial district, which is intended to accommodate large and small-scale commercial and office development, including a wide range of retail, service, lodging, and office uses have all been designated as appropriate. Some background on the project. The applicant intends to construct an automotive dealership and service center on tax parcels 18-3568-40, currently zoned light industrial in the city of Onalaska. Tax parcel number 18-3570-70, which is zoned neighborhood business under consideration on this agenda item. And tax parcel number 9-93-0, which is currently in the town of Madera. The applicant has an accepted offer to purchase from the property owner, which is required to process this application. The applicant will be required to complete the following activities if the rezoning request is granted. Merging all three parcels into a single parcel, which is why the rezoning is necessary today, as the zoning districts do not currently match. Provide required access to improve circulation from neighboring properties to funnel vehicular traffic to the signaled intersection of Theater Road and Midwest Drive. Obtain a conditional use permit for an automotive dealership and service center, and if any future lot divisions were to occur, they need to obtain a certified survey map as approved by the Plan Commission and Common Council. Included in your packet tonight is a attached site plan, which is conceptual only. We have received an updated site plan that the Dahls have provided up on your screen. It shows additional landscaping, lighting information, and where they're proposing to do their screening for this particular project. The property owner would be required to obtain a site plan permit and comply with all of the Unified Development Code requirements such as landscaping, parking, green space requirements, setbacks, screening, buffering, in addition to obtaining all required permits from other relevant state agencies prior to construction activities. As stated, the applicant is intending to move forward with this project beginning in August of 2019. As a public hearing will be held, testimony from the public should be listened to and considered before deciding on the requested application. City staff have put together 14 conditions of approval if the Plan Commission should move this forward to the Common Council for consideration.
Thank you, Katie. Okay, now this is how the public hearing works. I'm going to call people up that want to speak in favor, and you can come up and say things that maybe you had on your mind but didn't get an opportunity to say. And then I'm going to ask, after we've exhausted those people, then we'll ask people that oppose to come up, okay? So that's kind of how the public hearing works. So first, I will call for anyone wishing to speak in favor of the project. Yeah, well, you could say whatever you want. If you thought you didn't get enough time, you can come up and restate stuff or, okay? Second call, anyone wishing to speak in favor? Third and final call, anyone wishing to speak in favor?
All right, well, Jansen Dahl, 208 17th Place, Lacrosse. So I'm speaking in favor of the project for some items I mentioned earlier. Just a little bit of clarity that I would need before, the council goes forward to recommend approval to the common council is just, it's related to the providing the required access to improve for circulation from the neighboring properties, since the access that references is a property that we're not discussing today related to the rezoning application. So the parcel we're talking about for the rezoning is completely separate from this requirement in that background section that was mentioned. So just want a little clarification on that. But if I am very in favor of moving that forward. And if we can continue to look at that section, I would appreciate it, because I would like that removed. So thank you.
As I indicated earlier, James Makepeace, I'm in favor of the,
Sir, I need you to identify yourself for the transcriptionist.
say that again.
You need to identify yourself.
Oh, sure. James Makepeace. I am in favor of the project, and there are a couple of comments that some of the public had I wanted to just mention real quickly. One of them was about the rain garden and the concern that there might be standing water there where mosquitoes could breed. The rain gardens that I would be designing for the project would actually be dry. They would have under drains and overflow pipes designed to keep the thing dry. They'd be designed to dry within 24 hours, actually. Both rain gardens and, which I just generically called storm treatment device, I think, on there. And I also noticed too, some of the damming with access roads and perhaps culverts that might be a little undersized, and I foresee the project actually benefiting, or that condition having a benefit from this project. So, thank you.
Anyone else wishing to speak in favor of this project?
Okay, my name's Clifford Hendrick again, and like I said, I'm on the fence. You didn't give that opportunity to allow people to do that, but my feeling on the subject is something's gonna go in there someday, and a bird in hand is worth two in the bush, and that's the way I feel about the dolls, and I only hope, like my neighbor Peter said, that we need more specifics, we need better designs. Before you approve this, do not allow them to say, put 2-foot-high trees in a picket fence or something, so that's all I want to say. But, like I say, somewhere down the road, something's gonna come in there, and it might as well be a parking lot as opposed to an industrial facility, so. Thank you.
Last call. Anyone wishing to speak in favor? Okay, that portion of the public hearing is over. Those wishing to speak in opposition, anybody can come up again and reiterate, or if you didn't feel you got enough time, I know a couple of you ran a little short of time, feel free to come up again. Second call. Oh. Second call. Third and final call. No, I'm teasing. Shoot. It's just one of those cruel little mayor jokes, that I don't get very often.
So you get to do it. I just kind of want to reiterate all of my concerns about the lighting and the noise and the, and the water. I certainly hope that the rain garden that's developed here would be dry as opposed to the one we did go to Winona and look at. That was towards the condominium side of the dealership, because that certainly had standing water in it the day we were there. So, they can say it's dry, but again, I saw evidence to the contrary in Winona.
Sir, would you state your name
I'm
again?
sorry.
Just for the
Peter
transcription?
Condon, 2216 German Court. I'm sorry.
That's okay. It's
So-
just for the transcriptionist, we need to,
Nope. So, and again, the property value, still looking for some guidance on that. If you guys have any suggestions, if we should have it valued now, and if it does go down in value in the future, and, someday if we do sell, then, what recourse do we have? So those, again, still my concerns. Thank you.
okay. I'm not even going to waste my breath on this one.
Scott Butler, 2220 German Court. Thank you again for giving me this time to speak. My concern with this project is there's a disconnect between what Doll is saying they're going to do and the 14 items which are listed in the agenda that they'd be required to do. They say they're going to leave up the vegetation. They say they're going to have these dark sky certified lights that go down to a 10% minimum. I can certainly appreciate that, and my opinion might be different if that was in what they needed to do. The only thing it says they need to do is have 80% opacancy. It doesn't say the height. It doesn't list anything about light. My opinion would be very different if what they said they were going to do was required if it was rezoned, but as it stands right now, it's not. So quite frankly, they can say whatever they want. If it's rezoned, they only have to adhere to these 14 points, and a lot of what they're saying they're going to do isn't listed in these 14 points, and that's my main concern. Thank you for this time to speak.
Okay. Anyone else wishing to speak against, or in opposition, I should say? Second call, anyone wishing to speak in opposition?
Deb Carlson, 2226 Germain Court. I'm feeling a little bit better, as I mentioned before, about what is going on, but I think the details are extremely critical, that they be reviewed and they be written down and we know exactly what the plan is. I also would like to, I don't understand the zoning and what is necessary for a car dealership, but is it possible that it could remain B1? And they could continue with their project. I guess I'm afraid that if we go into M1, who knows what could happen in the future, and I may not be there that long, but I think heavy industrial is just not a good fit for our neighborhood. Thank you.
Okay, anyone else wishing to speak in opposition? That portion of the public hearing is closed. The public hearing is now closed. What is the wish of the commission?
So we can advance discussion. I'll make a motion to approve the rezoning request with the conditions
14.
recommended by staff, 14 of them.
A motion made by Commissioner Brightspecker, seconded by Commissioner Knott, to approve the request with the 14 conditions. Commissioner Brightspecker.
Number one, we were provided information by the Dolls related to lighting. And I think what they're proposing here, which will fall under staff review, because it's my understanding that they will look at lighting as one of the key elements under their review process. But it does reasonably address what I think is any business location lighting. Again, surface water runoff, that's something also that staff will be reviewing. The city engineering department will look at those things as far as the effect of this type of development on the water situation in the area. So those things come under staff review, and those will need to be, those questions will have to be satisfied. There's been a lot of confusion, I think, between M1. What does that mean? That's not heavy industrial. So things related to foundries and things like that, they're not allowed in M1. Is that correct, Katie?
Katie, why don't you read it, what is allowed?
Sure, can do. So permitted uses in the M1 district include cleaning, pressing, and drying establishments, commercial bakeries, laboratories, storage and sale of machinery and equipment, wholesaling, any existing residences, caterers, churches, department stores, fish meat markets, hotels, pawn shops, pet shops, printing and/or publishing facilities, private clubs, private schools, radio broadcasting studios, trade and contractors' offices and supply stores, upholstery shops, variety stores, bars and clubs, clinics, credit unions, financial institutions, lodges, motels, professional offices, restaurants, self-service, pickup, laundry, dry cleaning establishments, tourist homes, personal service establishments, retail stores, and food businesses. So starting when the list hit bars and clubs, clinics, credit unions, et cetera, this last piece, those are all allowed in B1 today. So all of those uses that I listed in the M1 district, you can do B1, B2, and M1 as they are today. So the reason most people tend to go to the light industrial district is that they have the most flexibility with your more traditional commercial developments. This does not include additional uses that are allowed through the conditional use permit process. There was a question related to, is it possible that the zoning stay B1 to allow the car dealership to go in? It is. B1 is allowed through the conditional use permit. The problem is that they're merging the three parcels together. So when they merge them together, all three zoning districts have to match. So that's why they were bringing in, the request is as of today, the annexation petition to bring it in as M1, the rezoning to go from B1 to M1, because the property on Theater Road today is currently M1. So in order to merge them all together, that's the intent. So there's many different uses that are allowed within these essentially three districts that you get to play with for this particular project.
And I'll come to you next, so.
So I think it's important that we all realize that this is nothing that isn't really allowed now. It's just consolidating those properties under one heading so that they can be managed properly. One of the things that we do here is we make recommendations to staff as far as things that they need to be looking out for when they do their site plan review. And I would respectfully ask that staff make sure that they're looking at that lighting to make sure that what the Dolls have provided is in fact going to be used and located properly so that we minimize the effects on neighboring properties. Secondly, I am concerned about runoff, which I think some other things in the ordinance need to be changed to reflect that as well. But staff, I know, does a good job reviewing the runoff situation anytime there's a new development, and Jared's very adept at deciding what needs to be done to mitigate that. Not to blow smoke up your rear end, Jared, but you're pretty good at it. As far as berms and plantings, give special attention to that if you would. I think it's imperative that we do anything we can to again, continue to buffer. Katie?
To note, the Plan Commission does have the ability to state what it is that you want to see for screening and berming. When you have a light industrial use against a residential or commercial, as it is in this case, because some of the residences are actually zoned commercial, you have the ability to have a minimum of a 10-foot wide buffer, but it can be more, and it's up to the discretion of the Plan Commission. So if the Plan Commission wanted to see a certain height of a berm, if you wanted to see fencing, if you wanted to see more evergreens versus different screens, you can create an additional condition onto this in addition to, or amend the one that staff put in. What we have in terms of those initial 14 conditions is strictly what the minimum ordinance requires. The Plan Commission has the ability to go above and beyond that as allowed in the ordinance, should you desire.
I think without dominating the conversation, I'll close with this, that staff does regulate all of the things that people have concerns about during that site review process. And they will never intentionally make any decisions that adversely affect neighboring properties.
And they have to come in for final site review, correct?
Site plan review has not been proposed yet, but that is just a staff-driven process. However, once an application has been made, it is public, and anyone from the community is welcome to come in and see what it is exactly that they're proposing and what conditions the city is intending to impose upon that. This is just the start of a condition of approval. When we go through the actual details of what is the landscape going to be, how many shrubs, what's the height of the initial evergreen, if that's what they're intending to do, of a 5-foot high minimum. A lot of the details that you're looking for this evening, they don't have yet. And they're not required to do so yet because they haven't started the site plan review process. What they are required for a rezoning is to give you a conceptual plan telling you what their intent is, but in all of those other cases, those details go to city staff. Again, open to the public for review, but ultimately it's up to staff to make sure we're listening to what the Plan Commission tells us to expect and anticipate, and then put forward in terms of additional conditions that you don't see here tonight. And I can't give those to you because I don't have a site plan that staff has reviewed at this time.
But thank you for your input. That's what we need, and we do treat that very seriously. So those things that are important to you are important to us too, believe me.
Mr. City Administrator.
Just one comment regarding M1, in light that we do have a new commissioner as well. And it's a point that was relatively confusing for me as I first relocated here several years ago. But for perspective's sake, all of our commercial areas on Highway 16 corridor, the big box stores that we have, the other retail stores and restaurants, is all M1 zone as well. And that is our zoning that we use for that, since we don't really have that commercial district definition that most of those places for not only the existing building, but any future buildings are looking for. So it's not an uncommon zoning for what the proposed business is. It's one that the city has used frequently.
Okay. Commissioner Knott?
Just, I know it was actually mentioned by some of the folks who gave comments earlier today or this evening, but I do want to also reiterate that it's not a matter of if those areas are going to be developed, it's a matter of how they'll be developed. Even under the current zoning conditions, eventually that land is going to be developed. And I think that I'm actually kind of impressed with what I've seen a couple times in the past and not seeing here now, that a developer is actually reaching out and working directly with the residents to try to address their concerns. And that's not something that they necessarily have to do. And I would just caution that any developer in the future may not be as accommodating.
Okay, Commissioner Brock, yes.
I was down there on Monday, and I understand that there is a water problem because in the L in German Court, there was a huge puddle that you had to drive through. Jared, could you just shed some light on what you're thinking there?
Just waiting my turn.
It's your turn, Jared.
Okay. Okay, so I will agree with the public. It sometimes is a frustrating process in the fact that we do not have official detailed plans, as Katie said, with the site plan. From an engineering standpoint, the developer is not. They want to make sure that their concept is approvable at this point, to the fact that they can make the investment in the plans and profiles and specifications to get that to work. I have met with the engineer's developer, or the developer's engineer, and looked at the site. Conceptually, on a conceptual level, it does look like it can work. With the drainage pattern that is in this area, if you look at the map that's on the screen tonight, and you look at that area, you can see that there's a cul-de-sac bulb shown, then there's the future dealership that's shown to the west of that, and then you get into the lands that are being requested for rezoning and annexation today. Along that property line there, in 2001, the city put in a 48-inch diameter storm sewer that runs all the way from East Main Street and discharges down by the interstate fence. Before that, all the drainage down through there came down through an open swale. With that, the city put the pipe in. It is sized. It takes all the water from all the way up to Eagle Bluff Court, does turn the corner down there, and then proceeds down an open swale down to the interstate ponding area, which is also parkland down by the intersection of State Highway 157 and Interstate 90. We last were in that area in 2001 to do maintenance on that swale, and I also have been down in that area in the last 2 weeks since this development has came through, and obviously noted that there's some maintenance to be done down there again. Actually, with the where the pipe comes out, there's some maintenance that'll need to be done with this project as far as getting some materials out of the way and getting it to work. The question came up, will there be more water in this area? So this area is an interesting area in the fact that, is it down there? I can't see my, am I seeing it? Okay, I don't think you're going to see that on the screen up there, but if you look at the car dealership itself, the two outlots in the front of the cul-de-sac, and also approximately half of the car dealership will actually drain back to Theater Road. It was actually designed to drain back to Theater Road. The engineer will have to take the water from that area back to the piping system that is under Theater Road, and then proceeds down along I-90 down toward where the Home Depot and Walmart area is. The back corner of that car dealership lot that sits within the city will drain to the open drainage system that drains along the interstate, and the area that, the proposed parking area that is west in the proposed annexation and zoning area. Will there be more water than there is today? Yes, there will be more water than there is today. They will have to meet DNR regulations for infiltration and peak flow requirements and our city ordinances, but that drainage swale was designed to have future development coming into it. Part of the site plan process, there will be a stormwater plan approved by the city. One of the things I always look at as part of that plan is to make sure there's no drainage onto the neighboring properties. We have multiple developments that come into the city each year, and that's one of the things we always look at because we don't want to have a problem where the parking lot or anything would be draining onto the neighbor's parcel. One thing I do notice with their plan that they've submitted today is they are increasing the buffer along the residential area, but if they leave the trees in there, we won't be able to fix any existing drainage problems if there are any where the existing gravel road comes in from the cell phone tower. So that would be, it might not be able to alleviate anything if there's a current drainage coming in, but we would definitely look at it. But the drainage from the parking lot itself would be required to go down to the open drainage swale that you see along Interstate 90. I guess with that, that's kind of the question. Jan, did I get your questions for the drainage swale, drainage area? I guess with that, other than that, it'd be typical site plan development items, but I do see that the drainage would be a large item on this project, so.
Mr. City Administrator.
Thank you. Part of my role as administrator is to advocate for good policy for the council, which ultimately this will come to later on. But really, we have two questions tonight. First question is the rezoning, and again, I think it's appropriate, M1, that's what are commonly used for, in the city for these kinds of developments. Again, it does not mean a large foundry or anything there. It is the zoning that we utilize. Second question, which is actually next on the agenda, is then the annexation. As Commissioner Knott had indicated, it's the last chance for a developer to really develop, and you know what you have now under the plot. Slightly different perspective. From the city's perspective, it's really the last chance the city has to really oversee that development as well. We know what we have here under current county zoning as a commercial district. Some of the things are similar. Retail, wholesale, offices, service industry, and 100,000 square foot warehouses, but also commercial animal establishments are allowable use currently under county zoning there. So if Doll does not do the annexation and utilize that facility, we have, as we heard, 5 acres of, that'll basically be an island. That'll be county zoning that this commission and the council will not have any control over. This is the one chance you really have to kind of oversee and guide the development of that. Decide, do we really want, that's not a fully allowable use, animal establishments, as well as the processing and treatment of products incidental to animal establishment. So we could have a tannery or something in that area there that we don't have any control over for both Doll business, which would be in the city, as well as the residents that are in the city on the other side of that as well. Conditional uses, also currently light manufacturing and assembly, distribution, warehouses over 100,000 square feet, and truck terminals and freight houses. I would suggest that probably light and traffic of a truck terminal or freight house is probably more substantial than what a auto dealer would be. And again, we have that control through condition number 11, which is the site plan review permit, to really guide that development in a manner that the city seems most fit for benefit both business and the residential community. So my policy recommendation to this board, as well as will be to the council later on, is to, one, both approve the change of zoning, and the second question would be to allow for the annexation so that it can be developed in a manner that the city can most appreciate.
Commissioner Knott.
So, obviously, there's been a lot of discussion, and rightfully so, over, I guess, I'll total visual barrier, the setback, the fencing, vegetation, along the northern and western portion of that parking lot. One area that has not been addressed that was brought up as a concern is the signage. Has Doll gotten far enough into your development process to where you know a location, size, lighting of the sign? I mean, for instance, is it going to be out by the Theater Road area, which would be in front of the main structure, away from the existing residences, or would it be south of that? Where would have you gotten that far into your design?
No, we have not gone through the site plan review yet, so we don't know. It best suits signage that's also dictated by our manufacturer, Honda in this case, that it be within certain distance from the building itself, one that's also visible from the main roadways, so Theater Road, they would consider that, so they need good visibility there, which would place the sign kind of in the southeast corner of the main dealership lot, so you can see from the interstate, in addition out on Theater Road as well. And as this is essentially a subdevelopment with 3 different plots there, it's possible that we may come to the, at the end of this to get a, like a subdivision sign or something that has signage for all 3 parcels there possibly as well. But again, we have not been through site plan review, so I can't really answer that for sure. But it really does not do us any good to have a sign way down in a parking area next to a cell phone tower. And it's much lower down there. We do not plan to bring that up to the grade of the dealership level for many reasons. A lot of them discussed today, drainage and things like that, and just pure cost doesn't make much sense. And so it would make most sense for us to put it, in the south east corner of the main dealership development. if that makes sense.
Is a question, is there a height thing there? The highway is higher. There, would the sign be allowed to be higher because of the I-90 height?
I think Katie's looking up the sign code right now, trying to figure out a height in that area, but,
And I'll just reflect that was Tyler Dahl that was at the podium? Okay.
So the maximum height allowed would be 45 feet, 45 feet above the center line where access is obtained. So that would be Midwest Drive. The elevation of Midwest Drive, 45 feet would have to be the top allowed. And the maximum square footage would be 300 square feet per side is how big they could go. So it could be 30 by 10. There's a number, as mentioned, of signs located along Interstate 90. Because they have that, they're adjacent to it, they are allowed to go bigger than your standard freestanding sign, but they would have to have that minimum.
Yeah, I believe that's a little specious at this point because we're not that far down the trail yet. So, yes, Commissioner Gleason.
I guess I'd also like to point out that that sign is allowed regardless of what happens with this rezoning. Any development on the property where the dealership building sits would be allowed that sign, correct?
That is correct.
So this has no bearing either positively or negatively on the signage.
Correct.
It's allowed.
Okay. Oh, I'm sorry, Commissioner Gleason.
I've got another matter that I'd like a little explanation on. And I was struck by condition number 3 when I read through these conditions, and I'd like to hear the logic behind placing that condition, that burden on the developer, the applicant.
when Goodwill came in, the original plan was for that site to have also access of some kind down to the Theater Road Midwest Drive intersection, and that's the reason the city did the investment in that intersection of the signal light. So that is the reason that that condition was added.
Where was that plan for access?
The plan
For access between the two properties?
it was never delineated, but it was stated that there should be a joint access as part, I think it was a part of the conditions back when that Goodwill came in, that there'd be a possible access to the south to Midwest Drive.
Well, I know there's an option on the part of the southern property to access the northern property, but not vice versa. Goodwill does not have any rights to access going south. And that was for the purpose of synergy between two possibly like uses, for instance, retail uses. I don't see that that has any benefit for the southern property. And probably minimal for the northern property.
If the traffic conditions keep up on Theater Road and possibly grow, which I would guess over time if we continue with more development in that area, the city will have to look at what to do in the next traffic study along that area. And the last traffic study we hadn't gotten to that point yet, but I could see at some point those driveways might become right in, right out because of the signalized the spacing between the two traffic signals and the amount of left turns going onto East Main Street from Theater Road.
I could see that being a possibility in the future, but I don't see why it's a problem for Goodwill. We've got a great example in Farm and Fleet where the city did the same thing, or maybe.
That's exactly what we're trying to avoid.
But it hasn't hampered their business at all. Their parking lot is full. This is a very one-sided requirement in that it solely benefits Goodwill and perhaps benefits the city in dealing with Goodwill, but it puts 100% of the burden on the Dahl family development. And to me, it smacks almost of a taking, because the logic for placing that there doesn't relate at all to the effect of the Dahl development on traffic. It's solely to alleviate a perceived issue with Goodwill's traffic. So we're basically saying, to be blunt about it, we're saying Goodwill's got a problem, Dahl, you pay for it. And I have a real philosophical problem with that. And we're talking about a lot of money when you take the value of the land and then the value of improving that land to provide the access.
And I think right now, looking at this, we're looking at securing a future access point, but not improving it at this time. I would offer that, it's always when you look at any development, you could look at this development also, and, the road was stubbed out off of Midwest Drive. Do we stub public access all the way to the westerly property line of that parcel to have access for the 5 acres that Rockwood owns? Is that good planning? Is that not good planning? Where do we start and stop, and how do we gain access to parcels and make our traffic system work? I guess I can't refute what you're saying.
I think the unfairness is that 100% of the burden is on the Dahls, and none of the burden of making it happen is on Goodwill.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. City Administrator, I was deep in thought, so.
I mean, the cross-access agreements are common. All of our developers have that. So we're not asking for, I think, substantial difference. The closed development properties, the Shopco properties, where the mall had multiple owners in La Crosse, they have cross-access because you're not building walls or dividing that. You're allowing for the free flow amongst all the businesses. And I think overall that increases the value of the commercial value of these properties because people can access wherever you are. The one place that we don't have is the place that we're referencing, Farm and Fleet. And the owners of that business indicate very strongly that not having access has definitely provided a negative impact to their business, as much as potentially, do they thrive there, do they look elsewhere? What was the number we had heard was $250,000 or something on a monthly basis. I mean, they feel it substantially, to the point where the request is that, again, the city and therefore the taxpayers do something about it after the fact. And now
Are we talking about Farm and Fleet now?
Yeah,
or
Farm and Fleet now.
Okay.
So that's what we're trying to avoid is by requesting the cross-access now, the long-term viability of all these properties in a commercial sense, I think, are much stronger versus creating walls and boundaries where, in particular, the Goodwill property then to the north becomes non-viable when, and I don't think it's that far away. You can try to go there anytime there's business is open, and it's difficult to make a left in right now. When school is out, it's really difficult to get in and out of that aspect as well.
Well,
And I would also disagree that it's 100% on the Dahl, because I think there's value that we know from the Farm and Fleet situation, the businesses that don't have, left-ins, in cross traffic, are negatively impacted. There should be a market value to that to have access. I would not say that it's 100% Dahl. I think if, as a business, if Goodwill sees the value in that, they would acquire from Dahl at a market rate access to their place.
I'll make one comment on Farm and Fleet that's kind of off topic, but they were offered access and declined it into the Prowley Center at that time. So it's on them, their current situation. Back to this subject, a cross-access easement, by definition, should benefit both parties. And I am just really hard-pressed to see that a car dealership is going to benefit by having cross-access to Goodwill. I mean, their customers aren't going to drive through Goodwill. Their car delivery trucks are not going to drive through Goodwill to get in. I disagree. I think it's extremely one-sided. And I would like to make a motion and at least have a vote on deleting that condition. If it were worded such that it was purely negotiated between Goodwill and the Dolls, and wasn't a certainty, it had to be negotiated and agreed to at arm's length, I think that would be reasonable. But for it to be dictated as it is here is not. So I'm not sure what the exact procedure is, but I'd like to make a motion to amend the conditions and delete number 3.
So, yeah, then it would be just to delete number 3, is what you're asking to do. Okay. Is there a second? Is there a second? Is there a second? That dies for lack of a second. What is the wish of the commission moving forward?
I'd like to step back for a minute here and look at the berm/landscaping a little bit. One of the things that we've addressed, Jan, in the years we've been on, we've actually looked at heights of some of the landscaping features. And I think that's a viable thing to do in this application. I think one of the, some of the input we had is, do you put 2-foot trees on top of that berm? Of course not. But I think we can set a standard as far as what size must be placed there. And clearly, we're not going to demand a 25-foot tree be placed there. That's a little bit burdensome for the developer. But, I want to throw it out for discussion. Can we require, a 7 to 10-foot tree? I like evergreens as a buffer. I think they do a lot to, absorb noise, get rid of some of the lighting effects. To use those heavily in that area, I think would create more of a buffer. Just throwing it out there.
I think we're getting a little ahead of ourselves here. So, go ahead.
I'm real hesitant for us to set specific standards on landscaping. I'd like to see, I'm very concerned that from those bordering homes, the cars in the parking lot not be visible. And that can be accomplished, that doesn't take 8 feet high, doesn't take a 2-foot berm plus an 8-foot tree. It takes, depending on the elevations at the homes, it may take a staggered 5-foot tree combination of fencing. I'd like to leave it to a professional landscaper to come up with something, but just suggest the guideline that the goal is that the vehicles not be visible.
One of the things we can do is we can add conditions that address those types of things.
Correct.
But I respect Paul's opinion here that how do we define that, though? Because I think it's something serious enough, and we've heard that in the input tonight, that we need to create some level of expectation that those views will be protected to a degree.
Is it possible for, well, is it possible to have a landscape plan, specifically a perimeter landscape plan, come back here? I assume you use a professional landscaper for these things, to come back and present a plan if staff isn't sure? I mean, that's my standard, is will they be able to see the cars? And I think they should not be. But, yeah, but I'm not smart enough to say exactly what that should be. And it may be something different where the parking lot is substantially lower than a house as opposed to same elevation as a house. Exactly. Is that unreasonable?
Any and all site plan can go to the plan commission. Typically, it is at a staff level, and if staff feels that there's controversial elements, there has been, the good example would be the one on, what was the street? Oak Avenue, where there was a apartment building that went in, and the site plan did go to the plan commission for review and consideration. So if that's what the plan commission would like to see, we can definitely make that happen. I would work it into the same timeline as the plan commission so that it wouldn't hold up any approvals. It would all occur in tandem with the deadlines that
Right.
staff have provided.
We don't want to hold them up by,
So.
but
So that would mean that the landscaping plan would either go to the June or July Plan Commission meeting, which would be in advance of your August 1st anticipated construction date.
Is that doable for the developer to put something together that we can at least get a feel for what it's going to do to shade the neighboring properties?
Tyler Dahl?
Yeah, we feel that's reasonable time. Yeah, I mean, again, it is a process, and it's, you know, a negotiation between what's reasonable and what's possible as far as all the different elevations for, you know, for what can be seen in our property, for those residents as well. And so we feel that is reasonable. Am I okay to speak to the previous number 3? Nope, I can't.
well, hold it.
The condition number 3.
Pardon me?
He's referring to condition number 3 where Paul had made his request.
We don't need to, because it's a moot point at this.
So, as stated, a landscaping plan is going to be required as part of this development. So that's something that they would have to do regardless if it was going to the plan commission or city staff. So that's something that we can have provided to you. If I can't get it in time for the subcommittee meeting, it will go to the plan commission regardless, just to keep the ball rolling and keep you informed.
We can do that as a directive to staff, can we not? Yes.
Just a requirement that the land, so just to be sure, is it just the landscaping plan that you're concerned about? Or are there any other aspects of the site plan that you'd want to see? Just so the applicant is aware of what would be coming forward to you and staff is aware, so we don't miss anything at the plan commission.
Yeah,
I
makes
agree
sense.
with that.
Okay.
Okay. Now, have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Abstentions. So moved. Item 5, review and consideration on an annexation application for N4342 German Court / N4375 Theater Road on Alaska, Wisconsin, 1.84 acres total, filed by Judith Rockwood, N9495 Radcliffe Road, Mendora, Wisconsin, 54644, tax parcel number 9-93-0. Katie?
Thank you. This is a consideration of an annexation application. The existing zoning in La Crosse County is commercial. Neighborhood characteristics include condominium development, single-family residential dwellings, vacant land, telecommunications structure, and retail establishments. Our comprehensive plan identifies this area as mixed-density residential, as there is a residence located on this parcel today. However, the comprehensive plan also notes that all surrounding land within the city and the town is guided for commercial, with which the proposed future use of the land is consistent. The comprehensive plan also identifies review criteria for annexations, of which the following are applicable. City should approve proposals for annexation into the city only when meeting the following utility and community facilities criteria, or if other community goals are met. The annexation is in an area designated for growth on the city's future land use map, and the increased tax base and overall benefit to the city of approving the annexation outweigh the actual financial impact on the community for providing police, fire, road maintenance, and other public improvements and services to this area. This particular property, excluding to the north, is all within the city of Onalaska. As stated in the prior agenda piece, it is the intention of the applicant to merge this parcel upon successful annexation with those south and east of it in order to facilitate the construction of an automotive dealership and service facility. The applicant is requesting to have the property annexed into the city with the light industrial M1 district for zoning to accommodate the future proposed development. Before you this evening is consideration of this annexation request. City staff have put together 12 conditions of approval for this development.
Okay, what is the wish of the commission?
I'd make a motion to grant the annexation request with the 12 conditions of approval.
Motion by Commissioner Brightspecker, seconded by Commissioner Gleason to approve the annexation with the 12 conditions presented. Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Abstentions. So moved. Item 6, review and consideration of invoice number 018-021-12 from Hoisington Kegler Group, Inc. for UDC zoning rewrite project. Katie.
Attached is the 12th invoice for the UDC zoning ordinance rewrite project totaling $9,789.33 for your consideration to forward on to the Common Council to pay at their next meeting.
I make a motion, we approve.
Second?
Motion made by Alder T. Smith, seconded by Commissioner Brightspecker to approve invoice number, number 018-021 in the amount of $9,789.33. All in favor? Oh, I'm sorry, Colonel Knott.
Minor question. So it mentioned that it was the 12th invoice. My sheet says it's the 11th.
That was a typo. Typo, it is the 12th invoice, correct.
Okay. Thank you. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Abstentions. So moved.
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
A motion by Commissioner Brightspecker, seconded by Alder T. Smith to adjourn. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Abstentions. So moved. Thank you.
Meeting is adjourned at 8:29 p.m.
8:29.